We don't care about retirement. We want you to be, so if you need $5,000 a month, then you need to, have enough assets, whether it's real estate or business or ATMs, or throwing off enough money without your labor so that you can maintain your lifestyle without a job, right? But most people aren't even thinking about that. They just think I get this big pool of money in my 401k, and I'm hopefully have enough to live off this money and not die before the money runs out.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Money Maverick podcast, the show that Wall Street doesn't want you to listen to. I'm Tip Turley, the host for today's episode. We're coming to you from the Money Maverick studio in Salt Lake City, Utah. Here on the show, everybody, we are on a constant quest to find true mavericks who are legitimately changing people's lives, one family, one person, one business at a time. Curtis May is one of those mavericks, and we're so excited to have him on the show. I met Mr. May a few years ago at a seminar in Las Vegas, and the things that he presented there have had an enormous impact on my life and my business practice. Curtis is one of those people that I can listen to for hours and not get bored. He has three great things going for him. He lives in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which is where I was born. Number two, he's a basketball player and coach, which is a great love of mine. Number three, he's way better looking than I am. And number four, he's a really, really smart guy with a great deal of integrity. One of Curtis's specialties is cash flow mapping, and we think many of you out there can benefit from his advice in this particular area. He is the host of the Practical Wealth Show podcast and the creator and owner of Practical Wealth Advisors. Curtis has been planning for individuals for more than 35 years, even though he doesn't look like he's old enough to have done that for 35 years. And he's passionate about helping his clients save money and live the very best life that they can right now. The primary focus of his financial planning firm is to help individuals and families become financially free by following the principles of wealth creation that have endured for centuries around the world. So welcome to the show, Curtis.
Tim, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're just, you're one of the top ones we wanted on here as one of the initial Maverick on the show. And I can't wait to have people hear your story and your pearls of wisdom. And let's just get started by finding out a little bit about how you were raised what's that?
So I'll try not to disappoint. There's no pressure.
No pressure. You won't disappoint. I've never seen you disappoint, though. But tell us a little bit about your upbringing with your childhood and teenage years, and specifically, what kind of things did you learn about money? What things were you taught either through your family or external sources, schooling, that kind of a thing? And maybe when did it start changing for you in terms of your perspective on money and finances?
So I didn't learn anything about money in school. Okay, let's start with that. Or as a business major, okay. But a lot of it was by example. I have a interesting upbringing because I'm a third generation entrepreneur, right? So my grandfather was in business. My father had basically been in business for himself once he got out the Air Force, and so he always, even as a teenager, talked to him, he had hustles, a dry cleaning business where he'd pick up, go to and deliver like dry cleaning to people's houses like in high school. And so he always had little ventures going on. And so the main lesson I got from money that I've heard from time, I guess I was about 7. This is the earliest I can remember. You never making money, you work for somebody else. You never making money, work for somebody else. Boy, you'll never making money, work for somebody else. And so I never got that go get a good job talk. And So so that was kind of my upbringing. I didn't really know much about that other than I would get up. We worked at the store. I was on the cashiering at 13, making change before the computers told you how much to change. You actually know how to count. You had to know how to count, right? And interact with customers. So those were, I guess, some of the soft skills I learned, growing up that kind of helped me in business today. And fast forward, I was in college. I realized that, okay, I'm barely on the team at this Division II school. And the NBA is not looking for 5'11" shooting guards with a mediocre handle. And I need a new dream. And so somebody kind of introduced me, showed me a check for $400. This one, and said, this is what I made for hours worth of work. I said, doing what? And I said, well, if this knucklehead, he showed me a little presentation and it intrigued me because I started to, I heard stuff like the rule of 72 and, started to, concepts. So now was, because I've always been interested in money, that was, money didn't scare me. I wanted to know how it worked. I wanted to make a lot of it. And so a lot of people were afraid of that. I wasn't afraid of that at 20, as long as it's legal and ethical, let's do it, and so I just but what I found about myself is I'm very much a crusader. Like, so I can't do stuff just for money. I like to right wrongs, and what I found is I like teaching. So what attracted me was that I was good at if you all study a Colby, I didn't discover it till about like 5 or 6 years ago at Ken Butler, but I'm a 7 out of a 10 fact find if you do a Colby index. So
You're talking
I'm
about
a nerd.
The Colby A
Yeah,
index you're referring to, right?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I'm a 7544, right? So I'm a 7 fact find. And so when I need to know something, I will binge on information, right? On like weeks, like I'll read everything there is in like weeks, and then I'll implement. And so then what happens is I found that I could read this stuff, and then I could think about it, and then I could draw it to you on a yellow pad, and simplify it. And so I found out that was took me a while to figure it out, but that was kind of like my superpower, but explained a lot when she told me what I was since elementary school of how I would binge on information, everything, and really. But so that was our bringing. I got into the financial services at 2021,
And
and
you're
I was
only you're only 27 right now, right?
there you go. So it's like only been about 4 years. 30th anniversary of my 29th birthday, like my mother, right? And the and so I was kind of like, it's funny because I was like Dave Ramsey on steroids. Like I was buy term investor difference, max out your 401k, buy term investor difference, IRAs, mutual funds were the end all be all for probably the first 15 years of my business, 13, 14, 15 years. And then I read a little purple book in 2000 called Rich Dad Poor Dad. Right.
Yep.
And then a couple months after that, I read another little book called, I don't know how I found it, Become Your Own Banker. But that got me into, because I'm a nerd. So if I read the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, I don't read just the book. I read the bibliography of the book. So I need to know what they're reading. So now I'm reading The Creature from Jekyll Island, economics in one lesson. And so basically somebody red pilled me, right? And and so that was it. So I started to question everything I had been taught. And so I was right. So we met our mutual friend Kyle. I was, you were with another, type of organization, Leap, and
Right.
I was with a thing that was similar to that. So then I understood efficiency of money, wealth transfers, and I was pretty good at that. So, when I met a person that you had on recently, Kyle, he turned me on to principle-based planning. But by that time, I was already like the anti-Wall Street financial advisor for probably the last 10, 12 years. Like I was kind of my theme was kind of wealth outside of Wall Street because I lost my religion after 9/11, and I had this woman lose, I was doing the retirement plans in the school district. I had this woman lose, she was 68. I inherited her. She lost like 50 grand in like maybe a month. Like boom, the guy had her in Janus Technology for all kinds of unsuitable things, right? And so the wholesaler from Mount Olympus, Smith Barney, comes down and he goes, I tell him this story. She's 68, she lost all his money. He goes, well, the market's going to come back. And I was livid. How dare you tell me this? I'm not going to curse, but this BS, right? I was like, are you insane? You know, she's 68. It ain't coming back in her lifetime. And so then I instantly lost my religion. So I was like, I am not a good salesperson. So I can't promote stuff that I don't believe in. And I lived through 4 crashes. And then I started asking myself, why is this happening? You know, and then we start studying Austrian economics, you hear about the business cycle theory. And then all of a sudden, once you start to understand and think, you know, what's going on, you know, I had a mentor say, if you know what's going on, you know what to do. And once I understood that, you can kind of see the waves forming, you know, of bad economics. And then, you know, with principle-based planning, it's more, nobody has a working crystal ball, as a mentor of ours would say. And then what you want to do is you need to provision and protect yourself, because you need to have planning that works no matter what, right? Because markets go up, down, and sideways. So I didn't learn any of that. I mean, I learned saving, I learned about term investor difference, I learned the rule of 72, although the way they teach it is a lie. Because, you know, mutual funds don't earn compound interest. That was like, I had to unlearn what I thought I knew. That was the thing. So, and it took me 3 years to deprogram myself from all that nonsense. And so, but that's a long intro. So, you know, you can break it up and ask me a question. But that was
No, I love that. I'm struck by something that you said, Curtis, and is so the first step of you challenging preconceived or what you knew previously, what you were taught, was you started to ask questions. But that was the first step. What prompted you to start asking questions and to question what you had been taught previously, your perspective, was you were studying first. You picked up books, you read the bibliography of the books, you studied and you dug in to some new material, which then triggered the questioning. And the knowledge was the foundation. I know you do a lot of knowledge-based preaching, so to speak, in a good way for people to become invest in themselves. And so the questioning is what did it, right? Yeah, look at your bookshelf behind you. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've read all these books, right? And not counting my Kindle, and I have books at my office, right? So it's you know, people say, well, how do you read all these books? So what do you do for fun? This, I like to know, I like to learn, I like to read. That's how I relax. And journal and think about it and figure out, okay, how can I teach this, or how can I employ this for myself, or how can I you know, help. We're in a belief changing business, right? And so a changed viewpoint can change your life. And that's what, you know, so, but I like to say it, but I don't take my word for it. I have no original thoughts. Here's where I read it. Because if you read it, you own it. And that's what I want people to have. It's your money, it ain't Curtis's money, right? So it can't be more important to me than it is you.
Yeah, I love that. Tell us, again, this is the Money Maverick podcast. We may offend people, but we like to tell the truth. Tell us how the financial industry, the Wall Street, tell us why do you think it's actually so deceptive? And like you said, it's really a lie. Explain what the rule of 72 is for the listeners out there who have no idea what you're talking about when it comes to the rule of 72, and tell us why it's not even possible to even go down that path.
So the rule of 72 is it's a math formula, but basically the simplified, money growing at 1% basically takes 72 years to double one time. So if you have $1,000 and it's earning 1% sitting in your you know, anemic bank account, it'll be 72 years if you make no other deposits before that money, that $1,000 is worth $2,000. Okay. Right. So unless you're like Methuselah, you're gonna live to 800, you know, compound interest ain't gonna get it done. And but now, so what happens is, what people show that, what they'll do is, So now so the whole formula is that, so if you take whatever interest rate that you're receiving and you divide it into 72, it'll tell you how long it'll take for your money to double, right? So if you're in 3%, you go to 72 24 times. So now that $1,000 will be $2,000 in 24 years, right? If you get 6, it will double every 12 years. If you get 12, it'll double every 6 years, right? And so now that you can, so it does give you an idea of the velocity of money. But what people do is they'll show you that. I know a whole market organization is built on this, right? They'll show you the rule of 72, and then they'll show you a prospectus, or they'll show you your average rates of return on the S&P or on this mutual fund, or last year this fund did blah blah blah, right? And so they leave it out there so that you extrapolate, okay, well, hey, this fund has has averaged 12%. Well, if I put my money in this every 6 years, if I put in 10,000, in 6 years I'll have 20, in 6 more years I'll have 40, and but that's math. That's not how money works, right? And so what happens is
math is not money, and money is not math, right?
Money is not math, right? And so what happens is, because here's the big lie. One of the big lies. There's so many, right? But mutual funds do not earn compound interest.
Say that again, right? Because people hear the opposite all the time.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta. Mutual funds do not earn compound interest. You know what they do? Only thing that they go up, they appreciate, and they go down. They depreciate, right?
The value, the value goes up and down, not
value
compound.
Goes up and down. So that's subjective, right? The fund is worth, like back in the day when people used to read the paper, I would show people how to look up their funds and their 401ks and stuff like that. I said, you can go to the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. You can look at your share price on your statement. You go to net asset value. You multiply the shares you own, right, times the net asset value at the end of the close, and that's what your fund is worth. That's what your money's worth, right, that day. Right. So that is not compounding. So when you see that doesn't mean when you see that your money's going to double every 6 years, because here's the other part. And I did not know this. One, I didn't know mutual funds didn't earn compound interest. All right. And so the more I'm finding out stuff I'm talking about, like with absolute surety over like 10 years, I'm pissed that I was like ignorant on fire. All right. And so the other thing was, if you have, let's say you have $10,000 or $100,000, right? And then the market drops 50%, which has happened, right? So I'm just gonna use simple numbers. So if it drops from 10 to 5, if it drops by 50%, that means you have 5,000, right? So you know what you have to do for you just to get even back to 10,000, you got to earn 100%. So that fund manager's got to hit a home run. So if let's say you show 10%, well, 10% return on 5,000 is $500. So all you have is 5,500. It's going to take you 6, 7, 8 years just to get back to where you were, not counting fees, taxes, all those other stuff, just straight money. And so people are lulled into they don't really understand what's going on, the hidden fees and stuff going on with that. And then if we like to quote from the book Fake with Kiyosaki is your fund managers and the guide of the typical financial advice is not designed to make you rich. It's designed for them to get assets under management, right? So they can charge you fees for 30 years. So that's not the game they're playing, make you rich. And I see a lot of people aren't even aware of that. That when we say, look, our goal is to help become and remain financially free. Well, you got to ask yourself, well, what does that mean? So I'll ask people, I'll say, well, when I say, I'll ask them, look, if I ask you the question, would you like to be financially independent or financially free? And I say, yeah, they go, yeah. I said, well, tell me what that means to you. And they go, well, I want to be out of debt. Getting out of debt doesn't make you financially independent. But I don't stop them there. I let them say what they're going to say. And then I want my own business. Well, that's a piece of the puzzle, but that in of itself don't make you financially free. I mean, some of y'all be better, need to keep your job. Okay. And then, so say all this stuff. I said, well, let me give you now. I just stop more here because I said, look, it's hard to reach a target you don't have. right? So I said, let's try this definition on for size. So Jim Rohn says you want to be able to live like you want to live from the income from your personally invested assets.
Right.
Right? The income, cash flow from your personally invested assets that will throw off money without your labor, right? So financial independence means you it's a capability, right? So we don't care about retirement. We want you to be, so if you need $5,000 a month, then you need to, have enough assets, whether it's real estate or business or ATMs, or throwing off enough money without your labor so that you can maintain your lifestyle without a job, right? But most people aren't even thinking about that. They just think I get this big pool of money in my 401k and I'm hopefully have enough to live off this money and not die before the money runs out.
Right. Hope. The hopium drug.
And is that, last time I checked, that ain't a good strategy. so and think about this. So now you're trying to accumulate, you're focused on accumulation, right? That's what we call the accumulation theory, right?
Right.
So you're accumulating monetary units called dollars, right? So the longer you hold them, Tim, do they buy less or more?
Less.
Right? Less. So the inflation, so you're saving Federal Reserve notes, you're really saving debt, and they're designed to make them buy less. So you're saving these, and then you're in a fluctuating market, and then you're storing most of it in qualified plans where the government controls the lever of what's going to be taxable. So you're deferring taxes, but the more accurate word is postponing taxes, right? And the calculation. Right. And then I ask people, I say, listen, do you think in the future, will the government need more money or less? Right. And see, so if is the cost of living static, or, what you perceive as higher prices is really the value, the purchasing power of the dollar dropping. So even if you had $1 million, $2 million, well, it don't buy $1 million of stuff in today's dollars. So that means you've got to pull more money out, which means your taxes are higher. Okay. So you're pulling the money you need. It's just so many moving parts there that, people, what we try to do is, you just got to educate yourself, because one of the things I learned is I used to be the teacher and try to make a lot of declarative statements. And what I try to do is I got to catch myself. That's still, I'm working on that, and that book we were reading, Never Hurts to Ask. So I'm trying to redesign. And so what I'll do is I'm trying to think of, okay, I need you, it's your money. I need you to own this. So what I try to do, I catch myself and go, okay, let me just ask them questions so that I need them to come to the conclusion themselves, because then they own the thought process, because it's your money, and so that's that, little things of how we try to get, our messaging across to people through not telling them, but asking them and helping them get where they want to go.
I love that. That's excellent information. Let's pivot a little bit and get a little more specific with one of your expertises. I mean, you just know so much. But in terms of our listeners that may be having trouble managing their money, and there's a lot of different ways to manage or unmanage your money, right? But one of the things that you focus on with your education is what you call cash flow mapping. It's a great term. If you can explain to the listeners, what is cash flow mapping? And maybe this kind of ties into maybe what your tip of the week might be in terms of cash flow management. But tell us what cash flow mapping is and how it might benefit somebody.
So cash flow mapping is the opposite of budgeting. Okay. So, and I'll give you a stuff, I have no original thoughts, right? So if you ever read Profit First, it's similar to that. Except for what I do is I do both sides. So I try to teach it on the personal finances, because I think that if you're hearing this in your bit, a lot of people, Tim, I'm sure you've seen this, is that they leave all the money in their business. They don't really pay themselves. They don't manage cash flow. They commingle stuff. So I try to help people to separate church and state. So one of the things, this is a quote I always like to read from George Clason from The Richest Man in Babylon. He says, if you have not acquired more than a bare existence in the years since we were youths, it is because you have either failed to learn the laws that govern the building of wealth or you do not observe them, right? So when we talk about principles-based planning, the richest man in Babylon, 7 euros for a lean purse, okay, is the principles-based planning, and
Right.
so because right, so it's what is the principle? Part of all you earn is yours to keep. That's a principle. So you gotta make money. You've got to set aside. We say 15 in the books. He says 10, and then you've got to spend less than you make. Right. So if you can't do that, it's done. Because if you can't control your cash flow, somebody's control you. So what I found, this is where cash flow mapping come in. Most wealth is lost by how people manage cash flow. So our tagline is you need to tell your money where to go instead of asking where it went. So we're actually building a course where we call it Taking the Mystery Out of Money. And we just focus on, okay, listen, money's coming in. So what you've got to do, part of all you earn is yours to keep. So you got to pay yourself first. So you got to say, and I'll give you the tip. The tip is around this. But
Yeah.
what you got to do is, so the cash flow mapping is like, look, you need to, instead of budgeting and even reading P&Ls, if you're in business, which is just a business budget, is like driving your car looking through the rearview mirror, right? So look at it because you're looking at history. So budgets are looking at history, and you've got to look forward. You got to, when the money hits your account, you got to assign that dollar or tag. So we just teach people to create 4. Let's say I'm just doing a personal finance side. We teach people to create 4 accounts, right? So you have an income account. So when your paycheck comes in, you want to deposit in that income account. And then we teach, so picture drawing a square in the belief that draw 3 more circles, right? So circle 1 is your wealth capture account, right? And so what you're going to do is I teach people, I want you to be a world-class saver. So I want to see if you can save 15, 20% out of every check. Then you have your fixed account. So you have certain bills that are predictable in both timing and amount. So they're static. They're the same every month, right?
Right.
So you can know that. So even if you're on commission, your business is up and down, your bills are not up and down, okay? And so you need to know what your life costs. And then you have a variable account, right? So a variable account is and so that, let me go back up. There's no debit card associated with the fixed account, okay? It's just, you can either write a check. For young people, that's paper where you write, you can do electronic bill pay, you can put on auto pay. I don't care, but you can't pull money in and out. You gotta, every pay, you gotta know what your life costs and make sure that money's in there, right? So if you can save 15, 20% of every check, your bills are paid. Curtis don't care what you do with the rest of it, okay? Because you got a part of all your earnings yours to keep. You got to manage your cash flow, which is what cash flow mapping about, and you've got to make your goal multiply. So that 15, 20% is for you to buy or build assets, right? And so where people get mixed up is the variable account. So a lot of times when I take people through this, they're not saving. Their fixed account is out of whack because they have a lot of debt. So every time you have debt, consumer debt, you're basically using future earnings as collateral, right? Because you spent money you don't have. And so now you're still paying for stuff you did 3 years ago that are still on your fixed bills. And so you keep adding to that, and then you don't manage your variable stuff. So variable are things like lunch money, eating out, shopping. And so what you'll find is that that's out of control. So if you'll give yourself some guidelines, say, okay, look, I'm going to say I make 5,000. Let's say, just for round numbers, I'm going to save 10%. That's 500. So now I have net, I've got 4,500, right? So now if my bills cost me 3,000, that means I got 1,500 left over for variable spending. So now, I have a software that does this. We show the $1,500, but now if we look at what you actually spend, you're actually spending $1,800, right? So we show that you have a negative 300. So now we got, okay, well, where's this? you know, and so you're either draining down your savings or you're making up your shortfall with credit cards, right? So you got all progress, I heard somebody say, begins with the truth. Okay.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So you gotta, before I even get into the principles, that kind of stuff, I have to figure out what's coming in and what's going out. Because we teach people to save 15% of their gross income. Well, the work is we have to find the money. And so I really teach that. And what I'm finding is that, you know, wealth begins in the mind and then ends in your wallet or in your bank account. And then you really have to, analyze, okay, what's coming in, what's going out. Because if you can't control your income statement, your budget, for lack of a better word, somebody will always control you. So you have to get control of the money that's in your personal economy. So our system is to break it up. Don't do, so McCallowicz calls it bank book. What does he call it? Bank book accounting. Oh, I've got money. I guess I can go buy this thing, right? But if you break it up into little accounts, like, okay, well, here's my bill money. I got to pay myself first, and this is what I have left over for discretionary income, and it's not your whole check. And so you got to, and so if you'll just do that and pay yourself first, you'll be amazed. Because savings has to be what? Automatic and systematic. The progress you'll start to make. And as the book, it says in Rich Man Babylon, when you get that jingle in your pocket, you start feeling better.
Right.
Kurt, you understand I'm in debt. I don't care. You still have to pay yourself first. You have to pay your debt, but you got to pay yourself first, right? You put yourself at the top of the line. So what we teach is that, and then everything else flows from getting control of your money. So I hope that.
Oh, I love that. So how could that segue into a really short practical tip for somebody that has to do maybe with that management?
So the tip is you create the wealth capture account. So savings has to be automatic and systematic. And maybe I heard this before, but this is the main thing, is that it's not a willpower thing. Because most people, they do this. If they have any money left over, they'll see if they can save it. So saving is an afterthought. It needs to be a forethought. So you've got to say, okay, look, this is what I do with people. I say, all right, I just did this with a client this morning. I said, all right, you make $5,500, right? I said, so I'm a calculator on the side because I don't remember the numbers and I can't count when I'm talking. So times 15% is $825. Actually, I did it by the year, and then I divided by 26. So it's like, I think for her it was like, can you save $380 a pay? Right. So now what I want you to do is go to HR. I want you to create this separate account and see if you can have that deducted and automatically direct deposit in your account so that you made it automated. And so I don't care, right now, that's all I want you to see you do. And I want you to exercise your pay yourself first muscle. So if you do that, that will make I have people that started doing that and they got used to it. They started to see the money pile up and they were fired up and they were looking for other ways to find money because this is the first time they've accumulated this money so easily. And it begins to, and as you start to get control of your money, you start, okay, what else can I do? And then now you start looking for ways to increase your income so you can save even more money. So the step is create a wealth capture account, set up auto pay, separate your accounts, but pay yourself first. And then just do that. Because you don't, people say, when can I start investing? You can, right? You don't even talk about, you don't have 90 days of your income in cash. I don't want to hear it. Can't do nothing.
Yeah. Wow. That is a great tip. That is awesome. Curtis, we're so glad you came on the show today. It was everything I hoped it would be. So your record is unblemished. You were 12 for 12 behind the line. Perfect.
Yeah. 3-point line, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
3-point line. Yeah, 3-point line. Yeah, yeah. So tell us, for the people that would like to follow you, get a hold of you, podcast information, tell us where they can find that information.
So the best way is to iTunes, our YouTube channel, really our YouTube channel. So if you search for the Practical Wealth Show on YouTube, it'll come up. And we try to to be educational. I try to interview people to go with the theme of wealth outside of Wall Street, so that, I don't tell people what to invest in, because investing is about becoming, right? Not about buying something. So I try to help people, show people there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and here are things out there that you don't know. And if you see something you like, call them, right? Do your investigation, become, right? Invest in what you know is what we teach, right? And so that's what we try to do in the show. So if you like that, listen to that. Curtis will challenge you to think, is your money, not mine. And that's the best way to do. Just listen to, my saying is that when a student is ready, the teacher will appear. And you know, you've got Tim here, who's one of the great advisors in the, in the country. And so, listen to what I'm saying, listen to what he's saying, and reach out to him. And
Well, yeah.
and
Well, if you're listening, especially if you're on the East Coast or PA, New Jersey, anything like that, and you want to talk to somebody local, you can't go to anyone better than Curtis back there. So, yeah.
well,
Well,
that's
thank
true.
you. Yeah, thank you so much, Curtis May. Thank you for being a maverick, and we hope you enjoyed the show. And until the next time, thank you again for being with us, Curtis.
All right, thanks for having me.
Okay, make it a great day, everyone.